Tonight, the door in Washington that was once wide open to Ukraine now appears to be slamming shut. The president of the United States calling the democratically elected leader of an ally under attack a dictator. And Vladimir Putin, the actual dictator in this situation, is sitting back and probably enjoying every minute of it. The tension had been building here after Ukraine was excluded from high-level talks between the U.S. and Russia this week, followed by the president's suggestion that Ukraine started this war, which it didn't. But after hearing that combination of Kremlin talking points, President Zelensky flashed his anger.
Unfortunately, President Trump, I have great respect for him as a leader of a nation that we have great respect for. The American people who always support us, unfortunately, lives in this disinformation space.
As you might imagine, President Trump did not take kindly to hearing that. It's actually what spurred his tirade on Truth Social this morning, echoing in part Putin's own propaganda, and then later repeating it in front of the cameras.
Think of it, a modestly successful comedian. President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won. He refuses to have elections, is low in the real Ukrainian polls. Somebody said, oh, no, his polls are good. Give me a break. The only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job.
Now, I want to take a moment to go through what you just heard there, one by one, in order. Zelensky did not start this war. Putin did. And he was not a moderately successful comedian. He was, in fact, so successful on TV that it propelled him all the way to the presidency in Ukraine, which sounds familiar. Zelensky didn't talk the U.S. into anything. The United States and Europe rallied to protect a sovereign nation that was being invaded. He is right that there was supposed to be an election in Ukraine last year. It was called off because the country has been under martial law for 3 years now. And as the Ukrainian constitution calls for, no elections during that time, given it's quite difficult when Russian missiles are raining down on your cities. Now, on the polling front, it's obviously hard to gauge that during a war. The latest figures that we've seen put Zelensky at about 57% approval in Ukraine. That's a real drop from where he was when this war started, but it's far higher than the 4% that we have heard Trump repeating in recent days. But maybe most importantly, of everything you heard there, it's that Zelensky is not a dictator. He won a free and fair election, actually in a landslide. And the irony here is that he is fighting Putin, who maintains power through sham elections, has his opponents jailed, or they seem to mysteriously die. When I traveled to Ukraine 1 year ago, President Zelensky sat down with me and told me that when it comes to this war and Putin and his ruthlessness, he says Trump just doesn't get it.
I think he can't understand what's going on here. He can't solve it with Putin and with Russia, because we'll never be ready to give our territories just for the stopping of the war, give them 30% of our country. I think he doesn't really understand that Putin will not stop. Even in this case, Putin will never stop, and he wants to occupy us totally. That's why I think that Donald Trump doesn't know Putin. But I know that he met him, and I don't know the spirit and mood of their dialogue, if their things. But he never fought with Putin. American army never fought with the army of Russia. Never.
So you have a better view than he does, a better understanding.
Better understanding.
Russia's former president tonight, Prime Minister and Putin confidant Dmitry Medvedev, summing up the feeling at the Kremlin today, writing, quote, "If you told me just 3 months ago that these were the words of the U.S. president, I would have laughed out loud. Donald Trump is 200% right." He capped off this post by calling Zelensky, quote, "a bankrupt clown." Our lead source tonight is CNN's Fareed Zakaria, who perhaps maybe thought he had seen it all when it comes to what we're watching on the world stage. And Fareed, when you see this, I know European leaders were bracing for Trump and the Trump administration to maybe take a hardline stance on Ukraine, not to continue the policy of the Biden administration. But were they expecting this?
Nobody was expecting this, Caitlin. This is a breathtaking reversal in U.S. foreign policy. It's in some sense the largest reversal in U.S. foreign policy in 8 decades. The United States, since the late 1940s, built the Western world as a free democratic alliance determined to maintain its sovereignty, maintain its prosperity, maintain peace, and in many ways to repel aggression from dictators. For the United States to be flipping and almost siding with the aggressive dictator against the democratically elected country that is a victim, that has stunned not just European leaders, it's stunned people all over the world. I've gotten messages from Asian leaders, from people all over the world wondering if the United States is not going to defend a liberal democratic state in Europe, if it's not going to defend the threat that its European allies believe is the most vital threat they face, who is it going to defend? Who is it going to support? Can American guarantees be taken seriously? Can American foreign policy be taken seriously? I think we're witnessing history right now in a very tragic way.
Well, and on that front, there's a real question of how these world leaders will respond to this. I mean, we saw the British Prime Minister phone Zelensky after Trump called him a dictator, and pointedly, as we were told, he reaffirmed support for him as Ukraine's democratically elected leader. The British Prime Minister is coming here to Washington next week. I mean, it really does raise the question of what that dynamic looks like.
Yeah, look, the dynamic right now between Trump and all liberal democratic leaders seems to be very bad. The Trump's dynamic with the autocrats, Putin, seems much better. But the reality is, in the short run, Western allies of the United States are in a bind. They have relied on the United States for their security. They have accepted U.S. leadership for decades now. And the entire security system has been built on the idea that the United States was the guarantor of the peace. The United States was the underwriter. So they can't easily find other options very quickly. But in the long run, Caitlin, what is going to happen is these countries, which are rich, powerful countries, are going to start asking themselves what kind of independent path they have to chart. That's going to happen with Canada, that's going to happen with Europe, and that means these countries will move away from the American sphere. They will look for a better relationship with China. They will look to find new ways to find markets, to find friends. This is the greatest gift, not just to Vladimir Putin, but to Xi Jinping. China will benefit from this more than any country perhaps in the world other than Russia, because this means that a lot of American allies will have to find a way to, make their way in the world, which means having better relations with China and not subordinating their relationship with China to what America wants.
You're talking about what this means for the world order. On the Ukrainian front, what realistic options does Zelensky have now that this is I mean, without U.S. aid, he told me in that interview a year ago, they will lose the war. What happens? What are his options now?
He doesn't have many options. The Europeans can try to ramp up supplies, but the truth is, again, the whole Western system has been built on the idea that America is the pivot, America is the guarantor. Even when Europeans build their military spending up, they buy American goods. That has been the deal. The United States guarantees, the Europeans buy American defense equipment, defense products. So if the linchpin of the whole system suddenly pulls the rug from under, it's very difficult to see how Zelensky is able to survive. No, this feels like one of the biggest kind of American surrender since Vietnam. It's difficult to recall another moment where the United States has just decided that it wanted peace so badly that it was essentially just going to surrender the struggle.
Fareed Zakaria, thank you as always.